In this video, I'm going to show how much bandwidth an IP camera can use and how can you measure it. So keep watching. Okay, let's talk about bandwidth for IP camera. I want to show you first this picture that I have here. This picture was taken from another video that I have here in the channel, where I was explaining about PoE, power supply for cameras. Here I have a PoE device sending power to the camera using UTP cable or Cat5e cable. Okay, so I power the camera using this device. The camera is pointed to the window, so I receive video here, and this video it's coming to my computer using this red cable here, Ethernet cable. Okay, let me show you also a diagram. Here's the diagram that represents my system here. So I have the IP camera pointing to the window, and then I'm connected to a PoE injector, and I connect to my computer, my laptop, and I want to know how much bandwidth I'm using here. That's the idea. I have an IP for the camera, I have another IP for the laptop. If you want to learn more about this, just see the other video that I have here. Okay. So I also have a different diagram here. If you have a different situation with a router, for example, you can send video to the internet using the router. Let's say you have your IP camera here. You're sending video to your laptop, and you're also sending video to your NVR, so you can record your video here. NVR is a network video recorder. You can receive videos from your camera and you can record it. So the idea here is that when you send video to be recorded here in the NVR, you need to send high quality video, so you can record with high quality. If something happens, you see the video that is recorded here with high quality. That's the idea. For monitoring, you can see like a medium quality video. You don't need a high resolution video because you already have the video recorded here. If you want to use them as an evidence or something, you have them recorded here with high quality. And to send videos to the internet, you have a problem here that you don't have higher bandwidth here compared to your local network. Your bandwidth is not that high. So you can do something like this. You can create different profiles in the camera. Let's say profile number 1 to send video through the internet, profile number 2 to send video to the laptop, and profile number 3 to send video to the NVR. That means the camera can have different profiles with different qualities and different bandwidth. Okay. For example, you can say, hey camera, let's create the profile number 1 with low resolution, with low frame rate, with a higher compression. If I compress more the video, I reduce the bandwidth. So that's the idea. I have a low quality video because I'm using lower resolution. I'm using lower frame rate and more compression. I have lower bandwidth, so I can send to the internet, profile number 1. And camera, let's create a profile number 2. I have medium resolution, medium frame rate, and medium compression. Okay, so I can have a medium bandwidth. I use to send to this laptop because it's local. I have enough bandwidth here locally. And let's use high quality, high resolution, lower compression, higher frame rate. Okay, so I can have high resolution and I can record here in the NVR. And that will be profile number 3. So I have 3 different profiles. I can create this on the camera. Depending on the model you have, you can create like 3, 4, or 10 profiles. Okay, different profiles. So that's the idea. So let's come here to the camera. You can see it better, the way it works. So here I have the camera live. We can see some cars passing by. And here in this left side, I have the configuration for profile number 1. I don't know, it's not profile number 1, it's one of them, okay? Just one profile here. I just pick one to show you guys here the different configuration that I have. Here I have codec 8-64, but basically 8-64 is the compressor I'm using. Resolution 1920 by 1080 is the same as say 2 megapixel or 1080p resolution that I have here. It's 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, okay, horizontal and vertical here in the image. I'm using 15 frames per second and compression level 10, maximum bit rate 2048 kbps, meaning the camera cannot use it more than that. I'm limiting the camera to use maximum of 2 megabits per second, right? And VBR is variable bit rate, okay, meaning when I have more movement here, the bandwidth is going to be higher. When I have less movement, the bandwidth is going to be lower, okay? Variable bit rate. So let's go here to a tool that I have on Windows. I can open this Task Manager. If you don't know how to use Task Manager, just come here, right click, and open here, click here in Task Manager. Then you have this window, you come to the Performance tab, and you can see here details about CPU, memory, disk, and everything else, including the bandwidth you are using. In this case, I'm looking here to the Ethernet interface. It's using around 1.5, 1.6. And here I have interface for Wi-Fi, okay? So I'm interested in see what I'm using here on Ethernet, that where I have my cable connected to. And we can see here that I'm using 1.7, 1.6 megabits per second, right? And that's coming from my camera, okay? From my IP camera. So the idea here is if I change the profile, let's say I have another profile here in the camera, I'm going to say, hey camera, let's use another profile. This one live for NVR. It's another profile I already created here, okay? And then the camera changes. We see we change the resolution. Now it's 800 by 600. It's still using the codec 864. Frame rate 15 frames per second. Compression level 10. Okay, it's still using VBR. And let's see now how much bandwidth it's using. Now it's less. Sometimes it's less than 1 megabits per second, all right? You see, 800K, 900K, and then sometimes come to 1 megabits per second. So that's the idea. That's another profile. I could record on the NVR using this, or I can choose a like higher resolution. That's up to me, right? That's up to me or to my project, what I want to record with more quality or less quality, okay? And let's see another profile here for the cloud to send video to the internet. Here using a wide resolution. You see it's wide compared to the last one. And it's using 640 by 360. Okay, we see a little bit less quality here because I'm like stretching a little bit the image here. The web browser is stretching it, right? But the resolution is not that high and using 10 frames per second. So let's see the bandwidth now. You see, less than 1 megabits per second. Varies a little bit from 300 to 700, something like this. Again, it's variable bit rate. That's why it varies according to the movement that I have here. And then that one I can send to the internet because it's less bandwidth. So the idea is that I can measure how much bandwidth I have from the internet when I buy a link. You can also measure your link, and then you need to see if the link matches what you have here in your camera. Remember that you need to have your upload. To send video to the internet, you need to be careful with your upload, all right? Let's see something else here. Mobile. What I have configured for mobile. Look here. I have something completely different. Okay, let's see here. The camera adjusts itself a little bit so I can see better the bandwidth here. But I'm doing something here completely different. Look the bandwidth I was using before and then what I'm using now. A lot of bandwidth. Okay, 22 megabits per second. I was using less than 1 megabits per second. Now using 22 megabits per second because I made a mistake here. Look, my configuration for mobile, I'm using the codec MJPEG. The codec does not compress that much, right? Remember, go to my blog, read about the codec to understand better, but that codec does not compress that much. I'm using the wrong codec here. Or sometimes I need to use this codec because the cell phone only supports this type of codec, depending on your cell phone and everything else, okay? But let's say I'm using this codec, it's not compressing that much, and I use the resolution 2 megabits per second resolution, okay? Sorry, 2 megapixel resolution, okay? or 1080 resolution, okay? 15 frames per second, 10 is the level of compression. So am I using too much bandwidth here, okay? So I made a mistake here. I'm supposed to use a resolution like a much lower resolution, less frame rate, so I can have less bandwidth. So be careful with that. If you make a mistake just like this one I'm using, I want to send like 2 megapixel resolution to the internet. Okay, if you use something like this, 1080, we also call 1080, you're making a mistake. Your cell phone does not need that resolution. Your cell phone has a small screen. You can have like a resolution, let's say something similar to this. 800 by 600 would be better, or you can use even lower resolution, okay? So when I change it here, let's come back again, see the difference? From 25, drop down to 1.2. So be careful with that, with the profile you are using here, okay? So you can have like a better project. And also be careful with something else. Here I have a professional software. Here I'm using Windows, okay? But if I don't use Windows, I can use a professional software like this one, Netlimiter. And then I can take a look here and see which application is using what, okay? I know that I'm using almost 1 megabits per second here, but which application is using that? I can see per application that I have installed on my computer. Let's run here, and I find here Internet Explorer is using this, okay? And also can see where it's coming from. It's coming from my IP camera. Remember the IP? 192.168.2.180. And even the port is 4520. It's coming from this port. Okay, so I'll download and upload. I can see everything in here. It's much, much better. The software is a professional software for network. It's Netlimiter. I have the Pro version here. You can buy. It's not that expensive, all right? Let me change here again. Let's say mobile again, so I can use a lot of bandwidth here. It's too much, remember? Then I come here again to the Netlimiter, and I can see it's coming higher and higher, 16, 20, 21 megabits per second. I'm using megabits here as a unit, okay? So it's showing megabits per second here. And I can see exactly where it's coming from, okay? Other softwares here, they're not using any bandwidth at all because I'm not connecting to internet. I'm just connecting directly to my camera. So if I have more than one camera, I have more softwares using bandwidth, I can know by looking at here which software is using what, okay? So it'll be a better information here. But if you don't have access to a software like this, you can just go and use the task manager as we are using before, okay? So guys, that's the idea, right? You must learn how to use your camera. There's a lot of things to learn about IP camera, and you can visit my blog and learn a lot more information there. And also you can start practicing a little bit with your camera. The concept is the same. Doesn't matter if I'm using one camera here. In your menu, in your camera, in your IP camera will be different. You have different menus, different places, right? But you can basically configure different profiles here, and you can start measuring and learning a little bit more, okay?